Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, An Introduction to the Project Enhancement Process, or PEP. Before we get started, I want to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate in today's web event. By clicking the orange arrow, you can open and close your control panel. To listen to this webinar, use your computer mic and speakers. You can switch your audio option by clicking Audio Setup or by selecting Use Telephone and using the dial-in information displayed, including the telephone number, the access code, and the audio PIN, followed by the pound symbol. During the presentation, you have the ability to send questions to RI staff through the Questions pane. Simply type in your question and click Send. At the end of the presentation, we will also have time to answer questions and address any feedback from participants. Test out the question window now by telling us how the weather is where you are right now. Great, Mike Perry says it's warm and sunny in Wales. Cloudy, says Joseph. Cool, says David. The weather's cloudy where Paul is. Great, we've got all sorts of answers coming in. Sunny in California, very hot, sunny in Delaware, it's nighttime in Hawaii, cold in Brisbane. Great, so it looks like everyone can use their question pane. We appreciate that. If you do have any questions for our panelists during the webinar, feel free to type your questions in right there. Lastly, I just want to remind everyone that you'll receive an email within 24 hours with a link to a recorded version of today's webinar. In addition, everyone that registered today will receive a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. My name is Chris Boletto, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. We have 2 panelists joining us and additional staff available as resources to answer your questions. We're joined by Stu Martin, a Rotarian in District 5100. Stu joined the Water and Sanitation Rotarian Action Group, known as WashRag, when it started in 2007 and is an active member of the operations team. He has had a brief engineering career, is a recovering lawyer, and has been very involved in the development of the Project Enhancement Process, or PEP. His primary role in WashRag and PEP is the formation of regional teams in districts or countries which guide Rotarians and their clubs on sustainable wash projects. We are also joined by Amanda Robertson. She is the Water and Sanitation Area of Focus Manager. She's been very involved in the Future Vision pilot and serves as a staff and Rotarian resource for global grants in the Water and Sanitation Area of Focus. She has also played a key role in the development of the Project Enhancement Process. I'd like to take a moment to review the agenda for today's webinar. We'll start off by discussing the purpose of the Project Enhancement Process. In the next hour, we'll also review the Area of Focus Statement of Purpose and Goals for Water and Sanitation Global Grants and the technical guides that will be developed as a part of PEP. We'll then talk about forming and working with regional teams and using professional teams, also known as PPP teams, to help design water projects. To start, I'll turn it over to Amanda to talk a bit about the purpose of PEP. Amanda?
Thank you, Chris. Rotarians seeking to further the Foundation's motto of doing good in the world are very interested in participating in water and sanitation projects. During the Future Vision pilot, water and sanitation has been the most popular area of focus for global grants. Through global grants, Rotary clubs and districts are partnering together to fund larger, more sustainable projects developed in cooperation with the benefiting community. The Project Enhancement Process is an effort to provide Rotary clubs and districts with the tools needed to plan these larger, higher impact projects from the very beginning. This graphic shows a breakdown of global grant activity during the last Rotary year. As you can see, of the 6 areas of focus, water and sanitation is the area with the most grant activity. Water and sanitation represents 35% of the total global grant activity last year. Given Rotarians' strong interest in and dedication to water projects, the Rotary Foundation and WashRag have worked together to develop and pilot the Project Enhancement Process to help give clubs and districts the tools to make a large and sustainable impact in this important area.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to weigh in on our poll question. I'm sorry, there was no poll question today. We had a slight technical difficulty. But now I'll turn it back to Amanda again, and we'll talk about the goals of PEP.
Thanks, Chris. The goals of PEP include to encourage high-quality water projects, to enhance Rotary's profile, reputation, and image, to develop new resources for clubs and volunteers, to increase external funding as a result of strong projects and enhanced public image, and to transition from short-term projects to long-term, comprehensive, and holistic projects that address community needs. The Project Enhancement Process pilot was approved by the trustees earlier this year. It is currently being pilot tested for the 2012-2013 Rotary year. There are 9 PEP host districts, and Rotarians in the host districts will have the opportunity to avail themselves of the PEP resources over the course of the 2012-13 Rotary year. However, use of PEP resources will not be required of these host districts. The resources will simply be available for their use. For example, Rotarians in these districts who are planning water and sanitation projects with a total financing of over $200,000 US can apply for a professional team to help them develop their project. We'll talk more about professional teams and other resources later in this webinar. Districts were selected in an effort to identify a representative sample similar to that of the Future Vision pilot selection process. Now I'll hand it over to Stu. He'll talk about WashRag's participation in PEP and the technical guides that will be available to all Rotarians.
Thanks, Amanda. The Water and Sanitation Rotary Action Group, known as WashRag, was formed in 2007. Rotarian action groups are recognized by the RI Board, but they operate independently of Rotary International. Its mission is to support Rotary clubs and districts worldwide to plan, finance, and do cost-effective and sustainable WASH projects, and to collaborate with communities and other partners. WashRag is open to all Rotarians interested in water sanitation work, currently has about 2,000 members and a much larger contact list. Like you and me, WashRag members are volunteer Rotarians who want to do good in the world. Many are lay people. You want to switch that slide. Many are lay people. Others have experience in the field, working with villages or slums, or helping communities develop. Some are fundraisers or connectors, and some are professionals with direct knowledge, water treatment engineers, hydrogeologists, environmental and sanitation engineers, cultural anthropologists, or health officials. WashRag represents a large portion of Rotarians doing water and sanitation projects and is eager to have others join as members and get involved. During the PEP pilot, WashRag is collaborating with TRF to build the tools, talent, and ability to scale up WASH work and make it more sustainable.
Thank you, Stu. Let's take a moment to review the Foundation's Statement of Purpose and Goals for Water and Sanitation. As you know, the goals of each area of focus are guidelines on how to meet global grant requirements. As the Rotary Foundation and WashRag work together to sharpen Rotary's focus, enhance the technical quality of projects, support sound project design, make effective grants, and measure our impact in the water and sanitation area of focus, it is important to design projects with these goals in mind. All global grants should be need-based and should be designed with the input of the benefiting community. TRF enables Rotarians to ensure that people have sustainable access to water and sanitation by 1. Providing equitable community access to safe water, improved sanitation and hygiene. 2. Strengthening the ability of communities to develop, fund, and maintain sustainable water and sanitation systems. 3. Supporting programs that enhance communities' awareness of the benefits of safe water, sanitation, and hygiene. And 4. supporting studies for career-minded professionals related to water and sanitation. TRF considers activities targeting the following to be within the scope of the water and sanitation area focus: access to safe drinking water, including water supply and water quality projects, access to improved sanitation, improved hygiene, and community development and management of systems for sustainability. In addition, watershed management and food security plans that depend on adequate water supply are eligible activities. And finally, water for production, such as crops, livestock, etc. Vocational training teams that support these activities and graduate-level scholarships and related programs are also eligible for global grant funding. I'll turn it back over to Stu now to talk about the next section.
To Rotarians who have good water and sanitation, at first it seems simple. Drill a well, install a pump, maybe add a filter, and children will be healthy. But the more we learn and experience conditions in the field, Rotarians have learned it's not so easy, and it can be quite technical. Do you really need a filter or disinfection? And which of these is most appropriate to this community? Toilets are an essential health measure, but there are many to choose from. Which will be acceptable to this culture and actually used by the people, and then maintained by them for years to come? Unless the right technology is selected, the project will not be sustainable. So WASREG is collecting wisdom from the field and providing technical guides related to water and sanitation projects. We intend these guides to be available to all Rotarians starting this fall. Guides will provide concise technical information on water, sanitation, and hygiene promotion, accessible for all Rotarians, clubs, and districts, and they'll probably evolve over time. The first technical guides will be available on Rotary and WASREG websites. They'll include 4 sections. 1, water supply and distribution. 2, water quality, which includes filters and treatment. 3, sanitation, toilets and the recycling or disposal of urine and feces. 4, hygiene and behavior change. These resources will provide information on the most commonly used and effective interventions. They'll include a description, pros and cons of its use, guidelines for application, and suggestions for further learning. These tools will help Rotarians through the planning and implementation stage for each intervention and become more comfortable discussing the options with the communities that we serve. Too often we Rotarians with good intentions come with preconceived ideas of how, based on our culture and economics, the tools should be used. But with these tools, Rotarians can help communities make choices that will be used, that are affordable, and will be maintained, and thus be sustainable. Now I'm going to show you one example. Most of us, me included, are not water and sanitation experts by training. So how can we as Rotarians, with only so many hours a week to volunteer, make good choices? Welcome to e-learning. Since the internet brings us closer, WASREG and TRF are developing online methods to help. So when you look at this conceptual diagram, you can see if you're a beginner, you can start at the top. Learn about why sanitation is important, why home toilets may be a more realistic solution than building wastewater treatment plants. Or if it's appropriate, you can delve into how a composting toilet turns so-called human waste into a rich compost nutrient that makes soil healthier for abundant gardens or better agricultural crops. And it does this by combining feces with biomass using particular designs. You can read about safe pumping of septic systems with small machinery that moves easily from house to house. And you'll discover that community-led total sanitation, CLTS, is sweeping across many countries. It's a way to end open defecation. So in the coming months, watch for these e-learning materials about water, sanitation, and hygiene. They won't come all at once, but they will be quite useful. Now I'm going to show you a comparison, the type of comparison we hope to do in what we're fondly calling the Consumer Reports module. Too often, filter manufacturers claim they are the best, or their product does it all. Well, in truth, water filters are like motor vehicles. One vehicle can't haul a refrigerator, compete in high-speed driving, and also get good fuel economy. Some are better at certain aspects. So it is with filters as well as chemical water treatments. Knowing what the risks are and what solution is best takes some investigation and thought. So here's a sample of a technical guide that compares different types of filters. You'll see in the blue shaded headings up on the right that it shows different types of contaminants that can be present. And then it rates each filter or treatment for how well it handles that contaminant. It even shows how much evidence there is to support the claims. This type of tool will help Rotarians select filters that are effective and help Rotarians in all districts design more cost-effective projects. Over time, WASRAG will provide tools like this, and we welcome your feedback on how to present this type of technical information. Okay, now we're going to talk about regional teams. In your club or district, when you consider all the WASH projects done in the last 5 years, let's say, how many of them are still working as intended? How does your club or district assure they are sustainable? Some limited studies in the WASH literature suggest that failure rates in 5 years range from 30% to as high as 70%. What is the failure rate or the success rate for Rotary projects? Isn't it time we knew? Listed on the right are some of the basic reasons that projects fail. And in the last slide of this presentation, when you view it offline, you'll be able to see considerations that make WASH projects sustainable. How does your Rotary Club handle post-project visits, review, and evaluation, and assure that long-term sustainability? Does your club revisit each community, verify flow, and test the water, assure that the schools keep the toilets clean and pump the septic tank? Is their hand-washing program working well, sufficient so that children don't transmit disease to each other or take it home to their families? Is the rate or tariff system generating enough income to maintain the system and pay the maintainer? During the question period at the end of this seminar, if your club or district handles this issue well, please share it with your fellow Rotarians. We think it's time in Rotary that we measure how projects are doing so that we can assure systems are sustainable and include the measurement method in the project plan. The WASRAG model is called Start with Water, and it's a conceptual model. So here it is expressed on a single page. WASRAG understands that each region will have areas with WASH needs and solutions that vary in their detail, but the principles of good WASH work will be the same. These principles have been derived over the last several years by studying Rotary water, sanitation, and hygiene project work, also that of NGOs and government agencies, reading the WASH literature, and extracting what is universally good practice. Our goal is not only to provide pure water and safe sanitation, but to improve the lives and livelihood of community members in a sustainable way. Rotarians in a club often work in silos, alone. They often can't do it all. They'll be more effective when they work with one or more partners, other clubs, an NGO, a government agency, an education department, a health organization or university program. Those folks often have good WASH programs also. It's not usually realistic for a club or a few Rotarians to know all the considerations and make long-lasting decisions. So now they can take advantage of professionals, both Rotarians and non-Rotarians, who are willing to volunteer to help us. That's why WASRAG and TRF are forming this pool of professionals. They'll come to the project site, give professional guidance on project design, help select the appropriate technology, decide how to measure and make a more sustainable project, and obtain some economies of scale. The Rotary Foundation is our wonderful and main source of funding, but the increase in the number and sizes of projects require us to find complementary funding sources, foundations, aid agencies, NGO partners This will leverage our Rotary financial strength. We must monitor the continued service of each project and then evaluate how it's doing compared to the intended design. So on the last two lines, when you put all the principles together, we listen to the community's needs and work with their culture, collaborate with others to enhance what Rotary can do, plan well, scale the projects up for more impact and cost effectiveness, measure and record the data, learn from the work we do, and improve it going forward. That, in a nutshell, is the WASRAG model. Now you might be asking, what is a regional team? In Rotary we have clubs and districts. We used the word region for consistency. Some districts have several countries, while other countries have several districts. So in large countries like India or Brazil, the district team will be the regional team. And for large districts that have multiple countries, like West and East Africa or Central America, it will be a country team. A region is the smaller then of the country or the district. In that way, these regions have a consistent set of government standards and agencies to deal with, and they fit within our Rotary structure of districts. A regional team, or RT, is a group of experienced WASH Rotarians, probably many of them on this phone call, who work together. Their charge is to guide clubs and their district to do stronger, better planned, more sustainable projects. If your district or country already has a Rotary Water Committee, this may be the basis of a regional team. You can add in the WASRAG model, add some talent so it's more capable to help Rotarians and their clubs plan sound projects. We ask that our team members serve for 3 to 5 years so they'll gain competence and consistency and guide the clubs and districts into a strong program of water, sanitation, and hygiene activity. In the long run, the regional team will be the hub of collective WASH activity in the district or country. It'll keep records, hold seminars, have experienced Rotarians visit with clubs, encourage and support the work that clubs do in helping rural and peri-urban communities in need. A regional team must be approved and supported by the district governor's string, the DG, the district governor-elect, maybe the district governor nominee. With help from WASRAG, they'll select the team leader and WASRAG liaison. The regional team is formed from Rotarians in the host country, and it may also include some key representatives from strong international club Rotarian partners or other collaborators. The RT is oriented on the WASRAG model, trained to be more effective. The Rotary Foundation has explained in Future Vision that we need to think bigger and act bolder, so a key function of the regional team is to help clubs focus on whole watersheds, large areas of need, an area that can be studied with and dealt in a consistent way. Sometimes this means expanding on the good work already done by a club. Other times it means looking at government data or NGO activity and selecting a new needy area to work in. Which Rotary clubs in the region work on WASH or want to do WASH work? Help them get up to speed, adopt an area, and interview the community to know their needs. After basic preparation is done by the club or a group of clubs working together, then the team of professionals, the professional or PPP team, is requested to come. They do a more complete needs analysis, perhaps hydrology or geotech work. They consider alternative technologies and then recommend solutions in a written report. Then the clubs, with their in-country partners and their international partner Rotary clubs, will apply for a global grant, perhaps add in other funding sources. In this PEP pilot, as you heard, WASRAG and TRF are asking for project values at least $200,000 in US dollars, which will request at least a $100,000 global grant from the Rotary Foundation. So keep this project size in mind. That value includes all aspects, water, sanitation, and health, plus any other features that come from an area of focus such as maternal and child health, literacy, or community development, like microfinance or microenterprise. So when you plan for multiple villages, reaching this size project is not difficult. That's the summary of what a regional team does. Now, a little more detail. To form a regional team in your district or your country, whichever is smaller, first get leadership support. Invite WASH Rotarians to get involved. Have them share stories of their best projects and the lessons they have learned. You can share with them information about the WASRAG model and the PEP pilot and what Rotarians are doing in other districts. Together we can raise all the boats. Ask for your Rotarians where whole watersheds or larger areas of high need are and get them to agree on one and start with it. Or if there's a good demonstration project that was done, extend it or improve it. Every club can be involved, regardless of where the project is. Many hands make light work. Use the WASRAG TRF questionnaire. It's now in 4 languages: English, Spanish, French, and Brazilian Portuguese, the languages most spoken in the PEP pilot area. It's not short, but it is invaluable to the regional team leaders, the district, and WASRAG as a whole. By sharing the background, experience in WASH-related fields, their skills and interests, and their passion, plus how they want to get involved, more people can be engaged and involved in the process. Rotarians and non-Rotarian professionals all should complete this questionnaire. The regional team leader will have access to this information. Finally, start in. Using the WASRAG resources, the WASRAG liaison will show you how. Begin to imagine what you can accomplish together. Collaborate, divide up responsibilities, and start planning for a larger sustainable project. Here are some typical key roles involved in a regional team. The conveners are the experienced leaders in the district and among your international club partners. They will find the team leaders and members. They know who is who. The WASRAG liaison will be trained on the WASRAG model and the resources that WASRAG has collected, how to post projects on the website, and other resources at WHO, UNICEF, and other WASH organizations around the world. The team leader might also be the government contact, connect with the water minister or the education department. The club liaison will visit clubs and promote WASH activity, explain the WASRAG movement that is happening in Rotary, and invite Rotarians to participate in the regional team, and then encourage clubs to use the regional team as a resource. The NGO liaison will, will scope out where NGOs are working and how they work, their willingness to partner with Rotary. Community visitors will meet with community leaders, with women in the villages, observe and bring back information for the regional team and the clubs to use in selecting and planning projects. You may want a nerd, a finder or web researcher to help your team find statistics or gather baseline information to support the plan. As it evolves, the team may add in non-Rotarians as needed, a professional engineer or university professor, an ecologist, a social worker, a community health worker, maybe even a photographer or videographer. So, now that your team is organizing, what will it do? These are some typical first steps for a regional team. They may vary, but these usually make sense. To save time, I'm not going to comment on them. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, and some of them were discussed earlier. You can refer to them in the webinar and the PDF. Now, moving on to the action steps. If you're in a PEP pilot district, please form your regional team now. Start this week. It's easier to do than it looks on the screen. Talk to your district governor, the DG string, district leaders, the water committee or project chair. Brainstorm the names of WASH Rotarians in your region or district. Who would be a charismatic leader? Who are the experienced Rotarians, both beneficial and helpful to the clubs? After you have Rotarians, who are some technical folks to join in? Who knows some NGOs or university or government contacts? If you talk it up every week, it will begin to fall into place. Please form your team during August and complete it by September. and keep in touch with me. I'm here to guide you in this regional team process. This is a critical step. If the regional teams are not formed and have done some groundwork, then the professional team won't have basic information, the sources of data, and the connections that will support what they need to do. Without that, they can't do focused and proficient work. Now, if you're not in the PEP pilot district, and I'm sure we have some in our audience, WASRAG will still be glad to assist you in forming a regional team, same as the PEP pilot districts. The difference is that the PPP teams won't be organized and funded by the Rotary Foundation, but we have some ideas for you how you can still do that step if you wish. Please use the flyers on that short web link there in the middle of the page, shown on line 2. Please note the upper and lowercase do matter in this kind of a link. The PowerPoint or PDF files and this recorded webinar are all useful for the leaders and people who aren't on this phone call. Ask everyone, please, to fill in the questionnaire. It's in 4 languages, common in your district or country. That's your region. Check out WASRAG's website, Start With Water, like the Team section, the Volunteers tab, the Learn tab. If you can't find what you want, please send an email to us at info@wasrag.org. And then contact me, Stu Martin, for help with the regional team formation or orientation and training for the team, or help selecting the team leader and liaison. If you'd like a way for your team to work electronically without driving across country for meetings, we have a group web tool that we're trying out. It has some features for conversations like this, shared documents, calendar, task list, even text messages and emails. So check with me. Now, back to Amanda.
Thank you, Stu, for that useful information. Now that we've discussed regional teams, we'll go on to talk about PPP teams, or professional teams. But first, we'd like everyone participating in this session to provide their thoughts on the question here on the screen. We'd like to know if you'd be willing to partner with other clubs to sponsor larger, more sustainable water projects. You can use the question pane in the menu panel to share your thoughts with us. We'd love to know what you think are the benefits or challenges to partnering with clubs in your area to undertake a larger project. So we have a couple of people that responses are coming in. A lot of people are saying that they're already doing so, especially clubs in the country they're serving. Yes, because it furthers the goals of Rotary. Already doing multi-club projects. A lot of you are willing to cooperate. That's great. So we've got all of these comments coming in, and we'll pass those along to our staff, and we may contact you. Thank you so much for participating. Now Amanda will talk more about professional teams. Amanda?
Thanks, Chris. Professional teams are a new and exciting resource available to Rotarians in PEP pilot districts. Rotarians and PEP host districts planning global grant water and sanitation projects with a total anticipated financing of at least $200,000 US can request a team of experts to assist them in planning their global grant project. The travel and work of these teams in PEP host districts will be funded by TRF. Professional teams will work with the host club and the local community to design holistic and sustainable projects based on the needs of the beneficiary community. They may undertake activities such as conducting needs assessments, feasibility studies, arranging and holding planning meetings between local stakeholders, discussing plans with experts in the field, and traveling to the project site. PPP teams are a great resource available to PEP host districts to aid them in working together with the community to plan larger projects. If you are interested in working on a large water project with total anticipated financing of over $200,000 US in a PEP host district, consider taking advantage of a PPP team of experts to help in planning the project. Keep in mind that the request for a PPP team should come from the host club or district. Rotarians who would like to request a PPP team can contact Krista Beatty for a PPP request form. There are many benefits to utilizing a professional team of individuals with water and sanitation expertise to help plan a large water project. In addition to creating strong, holistic, and more effective projects with input from the benefiting community, global grant projects that are planned with the assistance of a professional team will receive expedited review from the Foundation. This means that projects will be approved more quickly, and Rotarians should be able to receive their funding and start their projects sooner. As you've seen, the additional PEP materials, such as technical guides, will be available in the next few months. If you'd like to learn more about PEP, we encourage you to review the Frequently Asked Questions document on Rotary.org. Keep an eye on Rotary.org for more PEP information as it becomes available. If you'd like to be added to the PEP mailing list, or if you'd like a PPP team request form, you can contact Krista Beatty. Her email address is on the screen, and it's krista.beatty@rotary.org. She can also add you to the PEP mailing list and answer any specific questions that are not addressed in the Frequently Asked Questions document. If you'd like assistance on forming a regional team, Stu Martin can provide more information and assistance to you. His email address is also on the screen and is stu.martin@wasrag.org. For more information about WashRag, you can email their general email address at info@washrag.org.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you to both of our panelists today, Amanda and Stu, for your great information about water and sanitation projects and WashRag and PEP. And thank you, audience, for taking the time to learn more about PEP today. Now we'll take the last portion of this webinar to answer any specific questions that you may have. We've already got a couple of questions that have come in throughout the webinar, but do feel free to type your question into your question pane in your control panel if you do have any questions for our panelists. So one question that we had come in is, who are good local partners in Tanzania beside the host clubs? Church, district government, health department of national government? Amanda, can you answer that question?
Sure. I'm happy to chime in, and then I'm going to let Stu provide some of his comments as well. A general rule of thumb that I tend to keep in mind when I'm working in any country, and this can be Tanzania or any other location, is just to take a really good look at the landscape and determine who all is involved in water and sanitation. Obviously, this needs to involve the community itself, where the water system is going to be located or where any trainings are going to be conducted. But then also think about the local utility companies, both at the local, the district, and the national level, other NGOs who may be working there, any politicians or community groups that are active. You really want to try to loop in any of the main players, any of the stakeholders in this, because the more they're involved, the more likely they're going to be involved in maintaining that system long term. So if you get their input up front, you can be sure to build in that input as you begin the planning process. So I just really encourage you to go into a community, go into an area, and try to discover who's already there, who are the main players, who is the community accessing or working with, and make sure that they're involved in your project planning and implementation. Stu, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
Very little, Amanda. I agree with that. I would say ask the communities what has been done in the past. Usually there's some history in each community, what has worked well and what hasn't. You may see abandoned toilet blocks built by the government. Find out why they were abandoned. But all of those potentials that the questioner mentioned, church groups, government agencies, universities, NGOs, they can all be good partners. You have to discuss with them what are their needs, what are their strengths, and how will they work with your Rotary group.
Thank you both, Stu and Amanda. Those were great answers. We had another question that came in. When and where will the area of focus policy, technical guides, and PPP teams be posted?
can you answer that, Krista?
Hi, this is Krista, and I'm going to jump in for Amanda here. She's having some technical difficulties. These will be posted on both Rotary.org, and you'll find information available on the WashRag website as well. You can currently find the area of focus policies for all area of focuses on Rotary.org in the Future Vision section. Thank you for that great question.
We had another question. The question is, how can I participate if I'm not in a PEP pilot district? So Amanda, can you answer that question?
Sure. I think that's a great question, and this is something that we're very aware that there are a lot of Rotarians around the world, and not all of them are in a PEP pilot district. Some of the resources that will be made available through PEP, like the technical guides or the consumer reports that Stu talked about, those will be posted on the website in the next couple of months and will be for use for any Rotarians planning projects. The area focus policy statements, as Krista just said, are already up there and are free for use for any Rotarian to see what's eligible for funding, what are some of the best practices or things to consider. For the PPP teams, they are right now only available for TRF funding for districts that are in the PEP pilot. However, as Stu mentioned earlier, you can contact WashRag if you're interested in bringing a PPP team to your club or district or your area and it's not a PEP district. WashRag is working in some of those areas and is eager to expand their work in clubs and districts around the world. And so while you may not be able to access TRF funding for teams right now, there are definitely other options that I'm sure Stu would be happy to talk to you about. Stu, do you have any other thoughts for non-PEP pilot districts or clubs?
No, I think you've said it well. Just please remember that the basic group that helps clubs and districts organize these well is the regional team. We really believe that's the workhorse that will help you have long-term consistency. So start with forming a regional team.
Thank you both for those answers. We had another question come in that I think is very important. It's about communication. Orlando notes that there are many different languages in the Rotary world and wonders, is English the official communication language for these regional teams?
Stu, do you have any thoughts on that?
My answer is no. The language that is, quote, official for your region is the one that the most of you speak and choose. It's not easy to have all resources be put into all languages. We have translated the questionnaire into 4 languages, and we're happy to receive help from people to translate it into other languages, even other character sets. The place where we house that questionnaire can handle that, but what we need is some Rotarian volunteers who are skilled at translating. Same is true for the basic flyers, the one-page flyers we put together that describe regional teams, PEP teams, etc. Those can be translated into the language that you choose. So feel free to contact us to help with the translation.
Thank you, Stu. We have a question from Peter who asks, does the Rotary cadre still exist for water and sanitation professionals to volunteer? And is the cadre the source of professional teams?
That's a fantastic question, and I'm so glad that you brought this up. The cadre still very much exists and is a vital part of the foundation structure in terms of both reviewing grants and approving grants. And many of the cadre members and WashRag members overlap and have many of a similar group of professionals. The PPP teams draw from a large list of people, both Rotarians and non-Rotarians, who have volunteered to serve on these teams, many of whom are cadre members, but not all of them. In addition, we are still very much at the foundation using the cadre to review grants once we actually get an application and to recommend to the trustees grants for approval, as well as to conduct follow-up audits, site visits, and post-project monitoring trips. So the cadre plays an invaluable role to the work of the foundation. One thing that is probably important to note is that while many cadre and WashRag members are the same people and are involved in both organizations, if a PPP team member is a cadre member, they cannot be involved in both the planning and the auditing of that grant for conflict of interest reasons. So therefore, if you're a cadre member and you are sent out to help plan a project through a PPP team, you will not be selected to then audit that project or conduct a monitoring visit later, simply because we don't want any conflict of interest there. However, you can still be involved in other PPP teams or other auditing visits as long as you're not doing both for the same project. Thank you very much for that question.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We had another question from David who asks, where does one look for details on the regional teams?
David, the best place is the WASRAG website. If you look at the tab called Teams, there's one for regional teams underneath that. It has the short synopsis of what a regional team is about, and then it has a one-page flyer. Also, there's a link here in this webinar to the PowerPoint presentation that was given by WASRAG at the Bangkok Rotary International Convention. That has more detail. And if that's not enough, I have a work plan and some sample position descriptions that I'd be happy to send you. Just email me.
Thank you, Stu. We have another question from Walter. And Walter asks, what support options are available for districts that are not in one of the 9 PEP districts?
Thanks, Walter. And this is a question that we touched on a little bit earlier in regards to technical resources. I think the question could really be broken down into 2 parts in terms of what technical resources are available and then what financial resources are available. Right now, if you're in a non-PEP club or district, most of the resources you'll be able to access will fall in the technical category, such as the technical guides or consumer reports, the area focus policy, the regional team assistance from WASRAG. Unfortunately, at this point, there's not a lot of support in the financial resource area for non-PEP clubs or districts. Right now, most of the assistance that TRF is providing is definitely being targeted towards those districts, just simply so we can test it, see if it works, and if so, then hopefully roll it out to a much wider range of districts in the future. This is very much something that we are setting our sights on long term. We do hope that we're able to kind of tweak this and adapt it, come up with the best product, roll it out to the Rotary world within water and sanitation, and then really thinking very long term and very ambitiously, we would love eventually to roll this out to the other areas of focus and to develop similar resource and financial guides, technical resources and financial resources for all of the areas of focus.
If I can add, Amanda, the support for this planning process has not been something for which TRF grants are readily available until now. That's why the PEP pilot is so important. But you can get support in other ways. There may be a local foundation or corporation that is willing to support planning better WASH projects. And I've found that when you talk to your international partners from Europe, from North America, from Australia, and so on, they are often willing to give some seed money for this kind of planning effort. So look around. There are funding sources available, and we can help with that.
Thank you both for answering that question. We had another question come in from Anan, who asked about smaller projects. Anan wonders if smaller projects will not be allowed to be implemented anymore.
Oh, wow, that's a fantastic question. And the answer is absolutely not. We are looking at supporting a wide range of project sizes through Future Vision. And while right now the PPP teams are really targeting larger projects, we want to be able to support the full range of project sizes. And so if you are planning on doing a smaller project, I think that's a great opportunity to look at the technical guides or the consumer reports that will be made available soon. Because if you are doing something a little bit smaller, you may not need a PPP team to come out and help you plan a large project. But at the same time, you may need a little assistance just from some technical guides. So we will most definitely continue to fund those, both within PEP and outside of PEP pilot districts, and we look forward to seeing a wide range of applications.
I agree, Amanda, and we hope to develop some simple methods like checklists or questionnaires that can be used in smaller projects without the need of a PPP team or a professional team.
Thanks for answering that question. We had a question from Dale. Dale wonders, are there plans to have this type of project available to districts beyond these pilot districts? And if so, when might that occur?
Thanks, Chris. Yes, absolutely. As I touched on a little bit earlier, right now we're focusing on funding PPP teams and really trying to get these resources out in the PEP pilot districts. However, the PEP pilot is simply a one-year pilot. It's fairly brief, and on July 1st, 2013, we'll really be taking a look back on how PEP worked in these pilot districts, and then ideally expanding that out to many other districts, if not all districts. As I said, we're also hoping to eventually move this into other areas of focus. And if there are cadre members or RAGs within other areas of focus that are eager to get involved, in expanding this and replicating it within other areas of focus, please let us know, because that's definitely something we would like to do in the long term.
Thank you, Amanda. We had a good question from Paul. Paul asks, how specific does the initial plan from the host country need to be to qualify for PEP team assistance?
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a really good question. So the PEP request, or the PPP request form that you can get from Krista Beatty, is pretty simple. We'd like you to have a pretty good idea of where you want to implement this project. So for instance, are there a handful of communities? Can you tell us a little bit about those communities in terms of, are they peri-urban? Are they smaller villages or smaller communities outside of an urban center? What are the current water systems there? How are people getting their water? We don't need hydrogeological reports, we don't need water quality results, anything like that, but just a basic understanding of how they're getting their water, what the situation is, and what the community looks like. And then once we have that, we can put together a team of people based on the region of the world you're in, the type of community you're working in, that type of information. We can put together a team that will come out and really help you conduct some of the more robust needs assessments and planning exercises so that you can get a detailed project plan. I also think that one thing that's important to note is that the club or district that is sponsoring the PPP team and sponsoring the resulting global grant application is going to be intimately involved in this PPP team. These are not two separate groups. We don't expect the PPP team to go out, plan a project, and then simply hand it over to the club or district, and the club or district, just take them at their word and submit a global grant application. We want to make sure that one of those club or district Rotarians is on that PPP team and is involved in every step of the process, really buys into the project planning and the implementation plan, so that by the time a global grant application is submitted by the host sponsor, they've been involved from the very beginning. So I know that's a little bit different than your original question, but I do think it's a good opportunity just to reiterate the important role of the club, the host club or district, from the very beginning and throughout the process.
I think that's great, and I would only add that, remember, we're not looking at only water. Sometimes Rotarians make that mistake. Fresh water helps a little bit with child mortality and health, but sanitation is actually the bigger problem worldwide, and it is more important. And hygiene, hand washing and personal hygiene is very important. So we want to have the club, district, or regional team look at all three aspects.
Thank you for answering that question, Stu and Amanda. We had a question from another Paul who asks, if we wish to bundle projects of several clubs, should we bundle by country or by type? For example, wells, toilets, hand washing.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I actually don't have any strong leanings either way. I mean, I think what's most important is that you're working closely with all the partners and that there's ownership from all of the partners. And if you want to bundle through clubs, or through communities, through activity type, there's a lot of different opportunities and options there. But I guess what I'm looking for most of all is just a really authentic partnership with full participation from any of the stakeholders that are involved, and just a really clear, practical project plan as to, why did you decide to bundle this? I think we tend to look at projects sometimes, and it seems to be a little bit of a wish list, as we call them, where you just kind of pull together little things that you thought might be helpful, but there's not a really clear-cut, I guess, rationale for how those things are connected, how they're interrelated. So one thing I would definitely encourage any project planner is to really have a rational plan for why these are all very interdependent project components. Why are they, need to be implemented together? How do they support each other? And, what factors really need to be thought through in order to make sure all of those different components succeed? Stu, do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a great question, and one that we're going to be developing during the pilot. I think it's a really good idea to think about how different areas are connected. There's two areas, for instance, that I'm working with that are physically separated. They're different, slightly different approaches, but we're trying to harmonize the approaches. Also, remember, too, sometimes people focus on orphanages or schools, but those same children go back home and drink bad water or have poor sanitation. So try and combine village work with school work so that the child's health will be able to change. But how to connect them so there's a good nexus or rationale, that will be an interesting question as we go through the pilot.
Thank you very much, Stu and Amanda. I appreciate your responses to that. And we had a couple more questions. We may have time for one or two, so if you can be brief in your responses, as brief as possible, that would be helpful. We had a question from Yinka about funding. We actually had a couple of questions from Charles and Yinka about funding. So what funding mechanisms or options are applicable or available for regional teams? And on top of that, is there special funding for clubs that are not part of the pilot?
There's no special funding available for regional teams. Unfortunately, WASREG doesn't have the resources, nor does TRF at this moment, to fund the formation of regional teams. So perhaps there's some money in a district budget, or in clubs can join together, or, as I said, look outside for a foundation to assist. It's an all-volunteer effort.
Thank you, Stu. And I think we have time for one more question, and that question comes from Modesto. Modesto asks, how can a club in a developing nation enter this process?
Thanks so much. We tried, when we were really looking at the scope of host districts, we tried to choose countries or districts in countries that all are currently undertaking water sanitation and or hygiene projects. So all of the 9 host districts within PEP or the PEP pilot are very much eligible and active within water sanitation and hygiene initiatives. So there shouldn't be any issue there. As for other Rotarians that are in countries in which water sanitation and hygiene projects may be applicable, we definitely encourage you to take advantage of guides like the Technical Resource Guide, the Consumer Reports, the Area Focused Policy, work with Stu and WASREG on setting up regional teams or contacting them for support in PPP teams if you're not in a PEP district. So we really hope that these resources and assistance will be applicable to Rotarians in a variety of locations around the world.
And I will add to those callers who are from developed countries, from international partner countries, you can hear in these questions, and I've heard many times, that the Rotarians on the ground in the developing countries need help in doing this kind of planning. So please be generous in your support.
That's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you very, very much to Stu and to Amanda for your thoughtful responses to those questions and also for your presentations. Also, thank you to you, our audience, for participating in the webinar today wherever you are in the world. You will be receiving a survey after the webinar today. We appreciate your feedback on your experience. That helps us develop our future webinars. You'll also receive an email after today's webinar with a link to a recording of this session. You should be getting that in about 24 hours. So thank you all for participating, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.